If I tell you to stand beside me, Nia, you stand beside me. Adrian Cole's voice was low enough that only the people nearest him should have heard it, but the ballroom had already gone so quiet that the words traveled beneath the crystal chandeliers like a warning. Nia Bennett stood 10 feet away with a silver serving tray balanced against one palm, the gold light catching the deep brown of her skin, while 200 of Chicago's wealthiest guests pretended not to stare. Vanessa Whitmore stood at Adrian's side in a white evening gown, one hand resting possessively against his sleeve, her smile polished and brittle. She's staff, Adrian, Vanessa said. She doesn't belong at this table. Nia's fingers tightened beneath the tray. She had spent 11 months inside the Cole mansion learning how to disappear. She knew which doors stayed locked, which guests never gave their real names, and which conversations stopped whenever a housekeeper entered the room. Invisibility had protected her. Tonight, Adrian was destroying it with a single sentence. He stepped away from Vanessa. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal tuxedo that seemed cut from the same darkness as his reputation, Adrian crossed the marble floor with the calm certainty of a man accustomed to rooms rearranging themselves around him. Nia kept her chin level. "Mr. Cole," she said quietly, "this isn't necessary." Something shifted behind his gray eyes. "It is now." Vanessa gave a sharp laugh. "You cannot be serious." Adrian never looked at her. His attention remained fixed on Nia. "Put the tray down." Nia didn't move. Around them, champagne glasses hovered halfway to lips. Conversations had died completely. Even the string quartet seemed suddenly too loud. "Adrian," Vanessa warned. He finally turned his head. "You asked where she belongs." His tone remained controlled, almost gentle, which somehow made everyone listen harder. Then he looked back at Nia. "Beside me." The words should have sounded protective. Instead, they landed like a command. Nia felt heat rise beneath her collar, not from embarrassment, but anger. Adrian had spent months telling her she was safest when no one noticed her, and now he was placing her beneath every calculating eye in the room. She understood why. That was the problem. Across the ballroom, one of Vanessa's father's advisors had stopped smiling. Another man near the terrace doors touched his cuff, a small nervous gesture Nia had seen twice before. Adrian saw it too. This was not a declaration. It was bait, and Adrian Cole was planning to make himself the target. Nia slowly set the tray on a nearby table and walked toward him. Vanessa's expression hardened. Adrian's face revealed nothing, but Nia knew him well enough to see the tension in his jaw. When she stopped inches away, he murmured, "Trust me." Nia looked directly into his eyes. "That makes one of us." Then, before anyone could react, she rose slightly onto her toes and pressed a brief, deliberate kiss to his lips. No passion, no hesitation. Just a choice made in front of witnesses. The ballroom seemed to stop breathing. Adrian froze. Nia stepped back, her eyes steady on his, and whispered so softly only he could hear, "Now they believe you." For the first time that night, Adrian Cole looked genuinely surprised, and Nia knew, with sudden certainty, that she had just changed the plan. 48 hours earlier, Nia Bennett was carrying fresh towels through the east hallway of the Cole mansion when she heard Adrian laughing behind a closed door. It stopped her because Adrian Cole almost never laughed. The sound was brief, quiet, and unfamiliar enough to make her glance toward the study before reminding herself that curiosity was dangerous in a house built on secrets. She kept walking. For 11 months, Nia had survived by understanding the difference between hearing something and listening to it. She noticed everything, but she rarely allowed anyone to know that she noticed. The mansion rewarded that kind of discipline. It was nearly 30,000 square feet of limestone, dark wood, polished brass, and expensive silence, sitting behind iron gates in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods outside Chicago. Guests came in black sedans. Men in tailored suits spoke softly in hallways. Staff members knew when to lower their eyes and when to leave a room before being asked. Nia had learned faster than most. She was 28, worked harder than anyone expected, and carried herself with a quiet steadiness that made people underestimate how much she understood. The job paid enough to help her younger brother Caleb finish college without taking another private loan, and that was reason enough to tolerate the rules. Keep the room spotless. Never interrupt meetings. Never ask about business. Never enter Adrian Cole's private office unless instructed. Most importantly, never confuse kindness with familiarity. Adrian had made that final rule clear during her first week. People who work here are safest when boundaries stay simple, he had told her. Nia remembered meeting his gray eyes without flinching. Then I suppose simple is what you will get. He had stared at her for 1 second longer than necessary before walking away. Since then, something strange had developed between them, not friendship exactly, and certainly nothing either of them would have named. Adrian noticed when she switched coffee brands because the old one gave his mother headaches. Nia noticed when he came home after midnight and stood alone in the kitchen instead of going upstairs. He never thanked her for leaving food covered on the counter. She never admitted she did it for him. Their conversations were usually short, sometimes barely more than a few words, but silence between them had begun to feel less empty than silence with anyone else. That morning, Nia entered the breakfast room and found Adrian standing by the tall windows overlooking the winter gray lawn. He was dressed in a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, reading something on his phone while untouched coffee cooled beside him. "You are going to complain about that coffee in 10 minutes, Nia said as she gathered the plates. Adrian looked up. "Am I? You always do when you let it sit." A faint expression crossed his face. Not quite a smile. "You keep dangerous records, Miss Bennett. Only about caffeine." She reached for the cup, but his hand moved first, covering the handle. Their fingers stopped less than an inch apart. Nia withdrew hers immediately. Adrian did not move. For one strange second, the entire room seemed too still. Then Marcus Hale entered without knocking, carrying a cream-colored envelope. The mood changed instantly. Adrian's expression closed. Marcus placed the envelope on the table and said, "Whitmore confirmed Friday night. Vanessa will be there." Nia continued clearing the dishes, but the name meant something. Everyone in the house had heard it lately. Vanessa Whitmore. Old money. Political connections. A family important enough that even Adrian's staff whispered about them. Adrian picked up the envelope. "And the announcement?" Marcus asked. "It happens at the gala," Adrian said. Nia kept her eyes on the plates. No delays. Marcus nodded and left. Adrian remained by the window. Nia turned toward the kitchen, telling herself the conversation had nothing to do with her. Then Adrian spoke behind her. "Nia." She stopped. He had never used her first name at work before. When she looked back, his face was calm, but something in his eyes was not. "Friday night," he said. "Stay away from the ballroom." Nia studied him for a moment. "Is that an order?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "It is advice." She gave him a small, unreadable nod and walked out. Only after the door closed did she realize what bothered her. Adrian Cole did not give advice when he could give orders. And whatever was coming Friday night, he was already afraid she might be standing too close to it. By Thursday morning, Nia had convinced herself that Adrian's warning meant nothing personal. That explanation lasted until she saw the guest list. The embossed cards were stacked on a silver tray in the library, each name belonging to someone whose influence reached far beyond charity dinners and newspaper photographs. Judges, developers, political donors, executives whose smiles appeared in business magazines. And near the top, printed in elegant black lettering, was Vanessa Whitmore. Nia did not touch the cards. She did not need to. Adrian's world had always existed 10 feet away from hers, separated by polished floors and invisible rules, but this was the first time she understood how carefully that distance had been designed. Adrian Cole trusted almost no one. He trusted Marcus Hale with business, his mother Evelyn with family matters, and everyone else with exactly as much information as they required to do their jobs. Yet somehow Nia had learned things no one had told her. He hated cinnamon in coffee, but tolerated it when Evelyn visited. He loosened his tie when worried. He checked every exterior door himself before going upstairs, even though security handled it. He never raised his voice when truly angry. The quieter Adrian became, the more the room obeyed him. People called that power. Nia sometimes thought it looked more like loneliness wearing an expensive suit. That afternoon, she found him in the conservatory, standing among tall windows streaked with cold rain. He was speaking on the phone, his tone calm. "Friday proceeds exactly as discussed." A pause. No changes. Nia immediately turned away, but Adrian had already seen her reflection in the glass. "Come in." She entered carrying fresh linens. "I was not listening." "I know." That answer unsettled her more than suspicion would have. He ended the call and placed the phone on a small table. My mother said you convinced the kitchen to stop serving her grapefruit. Her medication label says she should avoid it. Adrian studied her. You read her medication label? I read everything I am responsible for handling. That sounds dangerously close to curiosity. That sounds dangerously close to gratitude. For half a second, his mouth almost curved. Then the expression vanished. You are very comfortable disagreeing with me. Nia folded a towel with deliberate precision. No, I am comfortable being correct. The rain tapped softly against the glass. Adrian looked at her with that unreadable stillness that made other employees rush to apologize. Nia did not. Do you know why people fear me? He asked. She glanced up. Because you work hard to make sure they do. His eyes sharpened. That is not the answer most people give. Most people want something from you. And you do not. Nia thought of Caleb's tuition bill tucked inside her bedroom drawer. She thought of 11 months of long shifts and careful savings. I want my paycheck on Friday. Adrian gave a quiet breath that might have been amusement. Nothing else. Peace would be nice. Something changed in his face then, something smaller than sadness but close to it. Peace is expensive. Only if you keep buying problems. He looked away toward the rain. For a moment, he was not the man whose presence could silence a dining room. He was simply Adrian, standing alone in a glass room while the storm gathered outside. Nia hated that she noticed the difference. She gathered the linens and headed for the door. Nia. She stopped. His voice was softer this time. Tomorrow, when the guests arrive, stay in the service wing. She turned. You already told me. I am telling you again. Why? Adrian's expression closed immediately. Because some rooms are safer when you are not in them. Nia held his gaze. And some secrets become more dangerous when people keep protecting them. He said nothing. She walked out. But through the closing door, she saw him reach for his phone, then stop. It was the hesitation that stayed with her. Adrian Cole was a man who planned everything. Yet for the first time, Nia wondered whether Friday night contained one thing he had not planned for at all. Her. The first time Nia openly defied Adrian Cole happened that same evening, and it began with a broken vase. Evelyn Cole had been hosting a small dinner for 3 longtime family friends when a young housekeeper named Lily dropped a porcelain vase in the west sitting room. The sound cracked through the mansion like a gunshot, sharp enough to stop every conversation nearby. Nia arrived seconds later and found Lily frozen beside the scattered pieces, her face pale, both hands trembling. Adrian stood near the fireplace, perfectly still. Marcus was beside him. Evelyn had already risen from her chair. I am so sorry, Lily whispered. I was carrying the flowers, and the vase slipped. Adrian looked down at the broken porcelain. That vase belonged to my grandmother. Lily swallowed hard. I did not know. You did not need to know. His voice was quiet, controlled. You needed to be careful. Nia saw the girl's eyes fill with tears. She also noticed the damp patch on the polished floor where water had spilled before the vase fell. The edge of a small rug had curled upward. Lily had not simply dropped it. She had tripped. Adrian turned toward Marcus. Have payroll prepare her final check. Lily looked as if the room had disappeared beneath her. Mr. Cole, please. I need this job. Nia stepped forward before fear could stop her. She did not break it because she was careless. Every face turned toward her. Adrian's eyes settled on Nia with immediate warning. This does not concern you. It concerns anyone being blamed for something that was not entirely their fault. Marcus lowered his gaze, suddenly fascinated by the floor. Evelyn said nothing. Adrian took one slow step toward Nia. Miss Bennett. The formality in his voice was colder than anger. Do you know who you are speaking to? Nia's heartbeat climbed, but she kept her shoulders straight. Yes. Then I suggest you reconsider your next sentence. She glanced at the curled rug. I suggest you look down. Silence. Adrian followed her gaze. The rug had folded beneath one corner of a side table, creating a raised edge directly in Lily's path. Nia walked over and pointed to the wet mark beside it. She caught her shoe here. The vase was already unstable because the table had been moved during cleaning this morning. Adrian looked at Lily, then at the rug, then back at Nia. And you are certain? I am certain enough that firing her would be easier than admitting you judged too quickly. Evelyn's eyebrows lifted. Marcus looked away, hiding what might have been a smile. Adrian's expression became unreadable. Everyone out, he said. Lily hesitated. Except Nia. The room emptied within seconds. When the door closed, Adrian remained silent for so long that Nia could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway. You embarrassed me in front of my staff, he said finally. No, I disagreed with you in front of your staff. There is a difference. There should be. Adrian stared at her. You are either very brave or very reckless. Nia folded her hands in front of her. People usually call women reckless when they say something powerful men do not want to hear. For one long moment, neither moved. Then Adrian looked toward the broken vase. Lily keeps her job. Nia released a breath she had not realized she was holding. Good. Do not sound so surprised. I am not surprised. She moved toward the door. I am relieved. Adrian stopped her with one question. Why did you risk your job for hers? Nia looked back at him. Because everyone else was afraid to tell you that you were wrong. Adrian said nothing. But when Nia left the room, he did not look at the shattered porcelain. He watched the doorway she had walked through, as if for the first time in years someone had spoken to him without fear, and he was not entirely certain whether he disliked it. By Friday morning, the mansion had transformed into something almost unrecognizable. Florists moved through the halls carrying white roses and winter greenery. Caterers filled the kitchen with silver trays, crystal glasses, and instructions delivered in quick, nervous voices. Security checked every entrance twice. By noon, black sedans were already appearing beyond the front gates, and Nia understood that Adrian had not exaggerated when he told her to stay away from the ballroom. Whatever happened that night mattered to people with money, influence, and very long memories. She spent most of the afternoon in the service wing helping organize linens and place settings, telling herself that was exactly where she wanted to be. Then Evelyn Cole appeared in the doorway wearing a dark blue gown and an expression Nia could not read. You are hiding, Evelyn said. Nia folded another napkin. I am working. Those are not always different things. Nia looked up. Evelyn had the same gray eyes as her son, but none of his careful distance. Mrs. Cole, I am exactly where Adrian asked me to be. Evelyn's mouth tightened slightly at the use of his first name, though she said nothing about it. My son asks many things when he is afraid. Nia stopped folding. Afraid of what? That is the question he never answers. Before Nia could respond, footsteps sounded in the hallway. Adrian entered wearing a black tuxedo, his posture controlled, his expression already arranged into the calm mask he used around guests. But his eyes went first to Nia. Mother, they are waiting for you downstairs. Evelyn looked between them. Of course they are. She left without another word. Adrian remained near the doorway. Nia tried to focus on the linens. You should go. So should you. I am working. Not in the ballroom. She set the napkin down. You keep saying that as if the room itself is dangerous. Adrian's jaw shifted. Tonight is complicated. Vanessa Whitmore? He went still. Nia immediately regretted saying the name, not because it was forbidden, but because of the look that crossed his face. It was not affection. It was resignation. What about her, he asked. Nothing. You clearly think something. Nia met his eyes. I think you look like a man attending a meeting, not a man celebrating anything. The silence between them sharpened. Adrian glanced toward the hallway, then closed the door behind him. Vanessa and I have known each other for years. That was not what I said. Our families have interests that overlap. Nia almost laughed, but his expression stopped her. That sounds even less romantic. Romance is not part of the arrangement. The word struck harder than she expected. Arrangement. Suddenly the flowers, the guest list, the careful seating chart, and Adrian's strange tension all looked different. You are announcing an engagement tonight, she said. He did not deny it. Yes. Nia felt something unpleasant settle in her chest, and she hated herself for noticing it. Congratulations. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Do not do that. Do what? Make that sound like a goodbye. She stared at him. You are getting engaged. For reasons that have nothing to do with what you think. You have no idea what I think. I have a very good idea. The room went quiet. Nia looked down at the folded linen between her hands. She refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing confusion on her face. Then perhaps you should return to your guests. Adrian did not move. Nia, your fiancé is waiting. This time the word landed between them like a door closing. His expression hardened, but beneath it she saw something else. Regret. Stay away from Vanessa tonight, he said. That is not advice. Nia looked up slowly. What is it? Adrian opened the door. The one order I need you to follow. He walked away before she could answer. Nia stood alone among stacks of white linen, listening to the distant sound of music beginning downstairs. For the first time, she understood that the engagement was real. What she did not understand was why Adrian Cole looked like a man preparing to lose something instead of gain it. The answer came to Nia less than an hour later, hidden inside a room she had been told never to enter. The gala had begun downstairs, filling the mansion with piano music, polished laughter, and the soft clink of crystal. Nia stayed in the service corridor, exactly as Adrian ordered, until Marcus appeared at the kitchen entrance with a stack of folders tucked beneath one arm. "I need the blue binder from Mr. Cole's office," he said to one of the assistants. The assistant was carrying 2 trays and looked ready to panic. Nia set down the napkins in her hands. "I can get it." Marcus hesitated. "Top drawer of the side cabinet. Do not touch anything else." "I know the rules." His expression suggested that Rules and Nia had developed a complicated relationship, but he nodded. Adrian's private office was nearly silent compared with the ballroom below. Dark wood covered the walls. City maps, financial reports, and framed photographs sat beneath warm brass lamps. Nia crossed directly to the side cabinet and opened the top drawer. The blue binder was there. So was a cream folder bearing Vanessa Whitmore's family crest. Nia would have ignored it if a loose page had not slipped onto the floor when she pulled the binder free. She bent to pick it up. 2 sentences stopped her. Formal engagement announcement. Transfer of controlling interest upon marriage. Nia's pulse tightened. She should have put the page back. Instead, her eyes caught Adrian's handwritten notes in the margin. Whitmore must believe agreement is complete. Final meeting moved to Saturday. Marcus takes control if I do not return. Nia read the last line twice. A cold weight settled in her stomach. She turned the page over. More notes. Instructions for Evelyn's security. Instructions for staff. Severance packages. A transfer prepared for Caleb Bennett's final semester tuition. Nia stared at her brother's name until the letters blurred. Adrian had planned for her family. He had planned for his mother. He had planned for Marcus. He had planned for everyone except himself. "You were told to get a binder." Adrian's voice came from the doorway. Nia spun around. He stood there in his black tuxedo, perfectly composed except for the tension around his eyes. She held the page in one hand. "What is this?" Adrian closed the door. "Put it down. Marcus takes control if you do not return from where." "Nia, do not use my name like that." Her voice stayed low, but the anger beneath it surprised even her. "You are getting engaged to Vanessa because you want her family to think you trust them." Adrian said nothing. That was enough. Nia looked at the notes again. "And Saturday is business. Business does not require preparing everyone's lives in case you disappear." His expression hardened. "You do not understand what you are reading. Then explain it." "I cannot. Or you will not." Adrian stepped closer, stopping several feet away. "The less you know, the safer you are." Nia gave a humorless laugh. "There it is again. Safety. The word you use whenever you want to make decisions for everyone else. This is not about control. Then why is Caleb's tuition in your file?" For the first time, Adrian's composure broke. Only slightly, but Nia saw it. "Because if something happens to me, you should not lose what you have worked for." The room seemed to shrink around them. "Something happens to you," she repeated. Adrian looked away. That frightened her more than any answer could have. Downstairs, applause suddenly rose from the ballroom, followed by the sound of glasses being raised. The engagement announcement was beginning without him. Nia held the page against her chest. "You are not marrying Vanessa because you chose her." Adrian's eyes returned to hers. "No, you are using the engagement to make her family lower their guard." Silence. And after that, Adrian reached for the folder. "Give me the page." Nia did not move. "After that, you walk into whatever comes. Next alone." His jaw tightened. "That is the plan." The words landed with terrifying calm. Nia slowly handed him the paper, but her eyes never left his face. In that moment, the entire night changed. She had thought Adrian was pushing her away because he had chosen power over whatever existed between them. The truth was worse. He was pushing her away because he had already decided he was expendable. Nia waited until the applause downstairs faded before she spoke again. "Fire me." Adrian's expression changed so little that anyone else might have missed it. Nia did not. His eyes sharpened, and the hand holding the cream folder became completely still. "No," the answer came too quickly. "You did not even think about it." "I did not need to." "Then think now." Nia stepped closer to the desk, keeping her voice low enough that the guests below would never know an argument was unfolding above them. You want me away from the ballroom. You want me away from Vanessa. You want me away from whatever happens tomorrow. Fine. Fire me tonight. Adrian set the folder down with deliberate care. You need this job. Do not tell me what I need. Caleb has 1 semester left, and I have managed his tuition without you for years. His jaw tightened. That is not the point. Then what is? Silence filled the office. Beyond the closed windows, Chicago lights shimmered through the winter darkness. Downstairs, the piano started again, soft and elegant, completely at odds with the tension between them. Adrian walked toward the fireplace, but stopped before reaching it. If you leave this house tonight, I cannot control what happens around you. Nia stared at him. There it is. What? The word you keep avoiding. Adrian turned. Which word? Control. His face went cold. You think this is about control? I think you have spent so long making every decision for everyone around you that you no longer recognize the difference between protecting someone and owning the outcome. Adrian took one slow breath. You are speaking about things you do not understand. Then explain them. I cannot. Because I am staff? Because I want you safe. The words landed differently this time. There was no command in them. No polished authority. Just something raw enough that Adrian seemed to regret saying it the moment it left his mouth. Nia's anger softened for half a second, then returned. If I am such a problem, let me go. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. No, why? He said nothing. Why, Adrian? Hearing his first name seemed to strip another layer from the room. He looked toward the door, as if checking that no one stood outside, then back at her. Because I cannot protect you if I cannot see you. Nia's breath caught, but she refused to look away. That is not protection if I do not get a choice. Adrian's expression hardened again, but the hardness looked defensive now. Choice does not matter if the person making it does not know the risk. That is exactly when choice matters. You want me to tell you everything? I want you to stop deciding that ignorance is a favor. Adrian crossed the room until only a few feet separated them. He did not touch her. He did not raise his voice. Somehow, that restraint made the moment heavier. People close to me become leverage, he said quietly. That is how my world works. Nia felt something inside her settle. Then perhaps your world is the problem. His eyes narrowed. You think I do not know that? For the first time, his voice carried exhaustion instead of authority. Nia studied him and finally understood something she had missed for 11 months. Adrian did not keep people distant because he believed himself above them. He kept them distant because closeness terrified him. You cannot protect everyone by making yourself alone, she said. Adrian looked away. Sometimes that is exactly how you protect them. Nia shook her head. No. Sometimes that is how you avoid trusting them. A knock sounded at the office door. Marcus spoke from the hallway. Adrian, Vanessa is asking for you. The mask returned instantly. Adrian straightened his jacket, picked up the folder, and became the controlled man everyone downstairs expected. Before opening the door, he looked back at Nia. Stay here. Nia held his gaze. That sounds like another order. It is. He left. The door closed softly behind him. Nia stood alone in the warm light of the office, staring at the place where he had been. Then she looked toward the cream folder he had accidentally left on the desk. Adrian wanted obedience. He wanted distance. He wanted her safely outside his plan. Nia had already decided he was getting none of those things. Nia left the office 5 minutes later carrying nothing but the certainty that Adrian's plan was worse than he had admitted. She did not touch the cream folder again. She did not need to. The notes she had already seen were enough. Downstairs, the gala had reached full momentum. Music drifted through the marble halls. Crystal glasses caught the chandelier light. Guests moved in careful circles of wealth and influence, smiling with the polished ease of people accustomed to being watched. Nia intended to remain in the service corridor, but Lily appeared beside her with a tray of champagne and panic written across her face. 2 servers called out, she whispered. They need help in the ballroom. Nia looked toward the double doors. Adrian had given her one order. Stay away. Then she remembered his words in the office. People close to me become leverage. She took the tray from Lily. Go help in the kitchen. The moment Nia entered the ballroom, she felt Adrian notice her. He was standing near the center of the room beside Vanessa Whitmore, surrounded by donors and family associates. His face remained calm, but his eyes locked onto Nia for a fraction too long. She saw the warning immediately. Nia ignored it. She moved between guests with practiced grace, offering glasses and keeping her attention on the room. Vanessa noticed too. Her smile remained perfect as she excused herself from a conversation and approached Nia. I thought staff were instructed to remain out of this section tonight. Her voice was sweet enough to sound harmless to anyone passing nearby. We are short-handed, Nia replied. Then someone else can manage. Nia held the tray steady. I was asked to help. Vanessa selected a glass, but did not walk away. Her pale eyes moved over Nia's black service dress, then down to her shoes. You have worked here almost a year, correct? 11 months. Long enough to understand boundaries. Nia met her gaze. Usually. Vanessa's smile thinned. That must be difficult for some people. Two women nearby stopped speaking. A man holding a champagne flute glanced toward them, sensing entertainment. Nia felt the attention spreading. Is there something you need, Miss Whitmore? Actually, yes. Vanessa lifted her glass, then deliberately tilted it. Champagne spilled across the front of Nia's dress and scattered in bright drops over the marble floor. A few guests gasped. Vanessa covered her mouth with one hand. How careless of me. Nia did not move. She looked down at the wet fabric, then slowly back up. Vanessa reached for a napkin from the tray. You should clean yourself up. And perhaps remember that tonight is not about you. Nia's heartbeat was loud in her ears, but her expression stayed still. I never said it was. No, Vanessa replied softly. You simply keep finding reasons to be where you are not invited. A nervous laugh came from somewhere behind her. Then another. Small sounds, quickly hidden, but Nia heard them. Vanessa did too. Encouraged, she stepped closer. People in houses like this sometimes become confused. They are treated well. They overhear conversations. They begin to imagine proximity means equality. The room seemed colder. Nia tightened her fingers around the tray. Respect is not the same thing as equality, Vanessa continued. And employment is certainly not belonging. Nia could have answered. A dozen responses rose in her mind, sharp and deserved. Instead, she remembered Caleb. She remembered why she had learned to survive rooms like this without giving anyone the satisfaction of watching her break. Would you like another glass? She asked. Vanessa blinked, irritated by the calmness. I would like you to understand your place. Nia's eyes remained steady. I understand it perfectly. Do you? Vanessa looked across the ballroom toward Adrian, then back at Nia. Because from where I am standing, you appear to have forgotten. This time the laughter did not come. Something had changed behind Vanessa. The guests nearest them became suddenly quiet. Nia saw their eyes shift past her shoulder. She did not need to turn around to know why. Adrian's voice came from only a few feet away, cold, controlled, and impossible to misunderstand. That is enough. Vanessa's face lost its smile. Adrian did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The three words moved through the ballroom with enough force to silence conversations 20 feet away. Vanessa turned slowly, still holding the champagne glass, and for the first time that evening her confidence looked uncertain. Adrian stood behind Nia in his black tuxedo, one hand at his side, the other loosely closed around nothing. His face was calm, almost unreadable, but Nia knew the signs now. The stillness, the tightened jaw, the way his gray eyes stopped blinking when he had already made a decision. Adrian, Vanessa said, forcing a smile, this is nothing. Your employee misunderstood me. Nia felt the room watching. She hated it. The wet fabric of her dress clung cold against her skin, but humiliation burned hotter. Adrian glanced at the spilled champagne, then at Vanessa. I heard enough. Vanessa's smile became brittle. You are seriously defending her in front of everyone. I am correcting you in front of everyone. A murmur moved through the guests. Vanessa lowered her voice. She is staff. Adrian stepped beside Nia. She is a person. The distinction landed harder than shouting would have. Nia looked at him, surprised despite herself. Vanessa's father, Charles Whitmore, had begun moving toward them from across the ballroom, his expression carefully neutral. Adrian noticed him and seemed to calculate something. Then his attention shifted to a man near the terrace doors, the same advisor Nia had noticed earlier. The man was no longer pretending not to watch. That was when Nia understood. Adrian was not only defending her. He was using the moment. Every eye in the room was now exactly where he wanted it. Vanessa folded her arms. This evening is supposed to announce our future, and you are creating a spectacle over a housekeeper. Nia's spine stiffened. Adrian's gaze sharpened. No, you created the spectacle. Vanessa laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Then tell me, Adrian, since you are making principals so public tonight, where exactly does she belong? The question hung beneath the chandeliers. Nia wanted him to say nothing. She wanted him to walk away, because she could already see the trap inside the moment. If Adrian humiliated Vanessa, the Whitmores would react. If he dismissed Nia, whatever fragile trust existed between them would fracture. Adrian looked at Nia. She saw calculation first, then something more dangerous, resolve. He removed his tuxedo jacket and placed it gently around her shoulders, covering the stained dress. Stand up straight, he said quietly. Nia gave him a look that should have warned him not to push further. Adrian ignored it. Vanessa's face hardened. Answer me. Adrian turned to her. She does not stand behind me. Silence. She does not stand beneath you. Another beat. Then he extended one hand toward Nia. She stands beside me. The ballroom seemed to forget how to breathe. Nia stared at his hand, but did not take it. She understood now what Adrian was doing. He was turning her into visible leverage because he wanted the Whitmores to believe she mattered enough to influence him. He wanted them to move early. He wanted them to reveal whatever they were hiding before Saturday. And he was still planning to face the consequences alone. Anger surged through her, sharp enough to steady her. She placed the serving tray on a nearby table. You should not have done that, she murmured. Adrian's eyes stayed on hers. Trust me. The same words from upstairs. The same impossible request. Nia looked past him toward the advisor near the terrace. He had already slipped a phone from his pocket. Vanessa's father was whispering to someone at his side. The plan was working. Too well. Adrian leaned slightly closer. Stay near me until this is over. Nia's expression did not change. You still think you get to decide that? Tonight, yes. No, his eyes narrowed. Nia. She lowered her voice. If you want them to believe I am your weakness, standing beside you is not enough. Adrian froze. For the first time, he understood where her mind had gone. Do not. Nia held his gaze. You wanted them to believe the performance. Not. Like this. Her anger softened into something more complicated. Then maybe you should have included me in the plan. And before Adrian could answer, Nia made a decision of her own. Nia stepped forward before Adrian could stop her. The movement was small, almost quiet, but every person watching understood that something had changed. She reached for the lapel of his tuxedo jacket, not to pull him closer with force, but to steady herself against the weight of the room. Adrian's eyes widened by the smallest degree. Nia, he said under his breath. Do not. She ignored the warning. For 11 months, Adrian had made decisions first and explanations second. Tonight, he had placed her in the center of his plan without permission, believing protection gave him that right. If he wanted the Whitmores to believe she mattered, then Nia would make sure they believed it completely. She rose slightly onto her toes and pressed a brief kiss to his lips. Nothing dramatic. Nothing lingering. Just one deliberate second that shattered every expectation in the ballroom. The piano player missed a note. Someone near the bar inhaled sharply. Vanessa's champagne glass stopped halfway to the table. Adrian did not move. For a man who could answer any room with a glance, he seemed suddenly stripped of every prepared response. Nia stepped back before the silence could break. Her eyes stayed on his. Now they believe you, she whispered. Adrian stared at her. You should not have done that. Neither should you. His gaze flicked toward the terrace doors. The advisor who had been watching them was already moving away, phone pressed to his ear. Charles Whitmore had stopped whispering and was now staring directly at Adrian with a look that no longer resembled polite suspicion. Vanessa looked furious, but beneath the anger was something more useful. Fear. Nia saw Adrian recognize it too. The performance had worked. Too well. Marcus, Adrian said without raising his voice. Marcus appeared almost immediately. The schedule changed, Adrian told him. They are moving tonight. Marcus looked toward the Whitmores, then at Nia. Understanding crossed his face. How soon? Soon enough. Vanessa stepped forward. Would someone like to explain what exactly is happening? Adrian turned toward her, his expression controlled again. You wanted clarity. I wanted respect. Then you should have shown some. Her face hardened. For her. Nia expected Adrian to answer sharply. Instead, he said something quieter. For anyone. The simplicity of it seemed to unsettle Vanessa more than anger would have. She looked at Nia, then back at Adrian. You are throwing away years of planning over a housekeeper. Adrian's eyes shifted to Nia for half a second. No, his voice was calm. I am discovering what the planning was worth. That answer reached Nia differently. She had expected strategy. Instead, she heard doubt. Real doubt. Adrian had spent months preparing for Saturday, arranging his affairs, protecting everyone around him, and convincing himself that disappearing into his own sacrifice was necessary. Now the certainty was cracking. Nia lowered her voice. You are still going alone, are you not? Adrian did not answer. That was answer enough. Absolutely not. This is not your decision. You made it my decision the moment you used me in front of this room. His expression tightened. I was trying to protect you. Then stop calling control protection. For a moment, the noise of the gala seemed distant. Adrian looked at her as though the argument from upstairs had followed them into the ballroom and become impossible to escape. What do you want me to do? He asked. Nia had never heard him ask that question before. Not order. Ask. She glanced toward Marcus, then toward the Whitmores. Change the plan. Adrian's jaw tightened. There is no time. Then make time. Marcus stepped closer. She is right. If they are moving early, the old plan is already useless. Adrian looked between them. The most powerful man in the room suddenly stood between two people refusing to obey him. For several long seconds, he said nothing. Then he exhaled slowly. Fine. Nia blinked. Adrian turned to Marcus. No solo meeting. Everyone stays informed. We move together. Marcus nodded. Nia felt the tension leave her shoulders, but Adrian looked at her once more before walking away. You changed everything tonight, he said quietly. Nia held his gaze. Good. And for the first time, Adrian Cole did not look angry that someone had changed his plan. He looked relieved. The revised plan moved faster than Nia expected, but for the first time Adrian was not disappearing behind closed doors to carry it out alone. Marcus coordinated calls from the library. Evelyn was quietly escorted upstairs before the remaining guests understood that the evening had changed. Vanessa and her father left the mansion under the excuse of a private family disagreement, but the polite smiles were gone. By midnight, the ballroom was empty, the flowers still perfect, the champagne untouched on half the tables. Nia stood near the library doorway listening to Marcus summarize what they had learned. The Whitmores had accelerated a financial transfer tied to the engagement agreement. They had also contacted two associates Adrian had suspected for months. It was enough to expose the arrangement without forcing Adrian into the private meeting he had planned for Saturday. Enough, but not complete. I can still finish this tonight, Adrian said. Marcus shook his head. Not alone. We already discussed this. No, Nia said from the doorway. Adrian turned. You were supposed to be upstairs. You really need a new sentence. Marcus looked down, hiding the faintest smile. Adrian did not share it. This is business now. It became my business when you put my brother's tuition in a contingency file. His eyes hardened. I explained that. You explained nothing. You decided what everyone would receive after you were gone, as if generosity could make disappearing acceptable. The library fell silent. Marcus took the hint and stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind him. Adrian walked toward the desk. I was trying to make sure no one paid for choices that were mine. Nia followed. And you thought the solution was making sure everyone paid in a different way? He stopped. That is unfair. Is it? Her voice remained calm, which made every word land harder. Your mother gets security. Marcus gets control. Caleb gets tuition. I get enough money to rebuild my life. Very organized. Adrian looked away. That was the point. No. The point was that you never had to ask whether any of us wanted a future that required losing you. His jaw tightened. You had no right to interfere with the plan. Nia stared at him. Neither did you. He looked back sharply. Excuse me. You had no right to decide grief was the price everyone else should pay for your idea of protection. Adrian's face went still. You do not know what I was preventing. Maybe not. But I know what you were becoming. And what is that? Nia stepped closer, stopping several feet away. A man so convinced he had to carry everything alone that he stopped seeing everyone around him as people with choices. Adrian's eyes narrowed, but the anger did not fully arrive. Something heavier took its place. You think I wanted this? I think wanting it stopped mattering once you decided no one else was allowed a voice. For several seconds, the only sound came from the old clock beside the shelves. Adrian looked toward the windows. Beyond them, Snow had begun falling over the dark lawn, soft and steady. "If I had told you," he said quietly, "you would have tried to stop me." Nia's answer came immediately. "Yes." He almost smiled, but the expression disappeared. "That is exactly why I did not tell you. And that is exactly why I changed it." Adrian turned back toward her. "You could have made things worse." "I could have. You could have put yourself at risk." "I know." "Then why?" Nia held his gaze. "Because you matter too." The words stopped him completely. Not because they were romantic. Not because they demanded anything from him. Because they included him in the same dignity he kept trying to give everyone else while denying it to himself. Adrian lowered his eyes for the first time. "I do not know how to do this differently." Nia's anger softened. "Then learn." He looked at her again. "And if I fail, then you try again." The silence stretched between them, quieter now. Adrian finally reached for his phone, opened a message, and handed it to her. It was the cancellation notice for Saturday's private meeting. Nia read it once, then looked up. "You actually canceled it?" "Yes." "Because Marcus told you to?" Adrian shook his head. "Because you did." Nia handed back the phone. "Do not get used to it." This time, Adrian did smile. Barely, but it was real. And somewhere between the empty ballroom and the first snow settling over Chicago, the man who had built his life around control made the first decision that was not his alone. By Saturday afternoon, the mansion felt strangely peaceful. The storm of the previous night had passed, leaving 6 inches of fresh snow across the lawn and a clean white silence beyond the windows. Marcus had spent the morning confirming that the Whitmore agreement was finished. The financial transfer had been stopped. The engagement announcement had been withdrawn before it reached the press. Vanessa had sent 3 messages. Adrian answered none of them. Nia expected tension. She expected closed doors, hurried meetings, perhaps another warning to stay out of the way. Instead, Evelyn ate breakfast in the sunroom. Lily returned to work, smiling nervously. The staff moved through the halls without whispering. For the first time since Nia had entered the Cole mansion 11 months earlier, the house seemed to belong to ordinary people again. That feeling disappeared when Marcus found her near the laundry room. "Adrian wants to see you in the library." Nia raised an eyebrow. "Is he ordering me?" Marcus almost smiled. "He specifically told me not to phrase it that way." When Nia entered the library, Adrian was standing beside the desk in a dark sweater and gray slacks. No jacket, no tie, none of the armor he normally wore around other people. A thin folder rested on the desk between them. "Sit," he said, then paused. "Please." Nia noticed the correction. She sat. Adrian pushed the folder toward her. "Read it." She opened it and found a termination agreement. Her stomach tightened. Full salary through the next 6 months. Medical coverage. A recommendation letter. Caleb's remaining tuition listed separately, but this time with one important difference. The payment would come from a scholarship fund Evelyn managed, not from Adrian personally. Nia looked up. "You are firing me. I am giving you the option to leave without losing anything." "That sounds more expensive." "It is." "And you think money makes this easier?" Adrian shook his head. "No, I think choice does." The answer stopped her. He walked toward the window, keeping several feet between them. "You were right last night." Nia waited. Adrian looked out at the snow. "I have spent years deciding what safety looks like for everyone around me. I told myself that was responsibility." He turned back. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it was control. Nia closed the folder slowly. "That is a difficult sentence for you. Do not make me repeat it." A small smile touched her face before she could stop it. Adrian continued. "You came here because you needed a job. You stayed because the job mattered to your family. Somewhere along the way, I started using that fact as an excuse to keep you close." His voice remained calm, but there was no mask left in it. "That was not fair." Nia studied him. "So this is your solution?" "This is me removing the obligation." He nodded toward the folder. "You can leave today. You can stay through the month. You can never speak to me again if that is what you want. Your employment, your brother's education, none of it depends on what you decide about me." The room fell quiet. Nia looked down at the papers. For months, Adrian had controlled every door in the mansion. Now he was opening one and refusing to stand in front of it. "And if I stay?" she asked. Adrian did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was softer than she had ever heard it. "Then you stay because you chose to." Nia closed the folder and stood. "Not as your maid." Adrian's eyes held hers. "No, not as someone you can order around. I am beginning to understand that would be impossible anyway. She almost laughed. And not because you think you owe me something. Adrian stepped back from the desk, leaving the path to the door completely clear. Then what would you stay for? Nia looked at the open doorway, then at him. I have not decided yet. Adrian nodded once. No argument. No command. No attempt to stop her. Nia walked toward the door, but before leaving she glanced back. That was the correct answer. Adrian's mouth curved faintly. I am learning. Nia stepped into the hallway carrying the unsigned agreement. Behind her, Adrian remained in the library, uncertain of what she would choose. And for once, he let the uncertainty remain. 3 months later, the Cole mansion looked almost the same from the outside, but Nia knew better. The gates were still iron, the floors still marble, the chandeliers still bright enough to turn every glass into fire. Yet the house no longer seemed arranged around fear. Lily had been promoted to supervise evening staff. Evelyn had started hosting Sunday dinners again. Marcus still entered rooms without knocking, but now Adrian complained about it instead of pretending not to notice. And Nia no longer wore the black service dress. She had accepted a new position managing household operations, with her own office, her own salary, and one condition she had insisted on writing into the agreement herself. No personal decisions would ever be tied to employment. Adrian had read the sentence twice before signing. He had not argued. That evening, a small dinner was being held for business partners and longtime family friends. Nothing like the gala. No engagement announcement. No hidden arrangement. No polished performance waiting to collapse. Nia stood near the dining room entrance reviewing a seating list when Adrian appeared beside her in a dark navy suit. You moved Whitaker. He talks too much when seated near Evelyn. My mother talks too much near everyone. Then consider this damage control. Adrian glanced at the list. You put Marcus near her. He deserves consequences. Adrian looked across the room where Marcus was already being pulled into one of Evelyn's stories and almost smiled. Nia folded the paper and handed it to a server. Everything is ready. Almost. She looked at him. Adrian nodded toward the long dining table. There was one empty chair beside his. Nia immediately understood. No, I did not say anything. You were about to. You have become very suspicious. You earned that. The guests began taking their seats. Several greeted Nia by name. Others asked her opinion about the evening schedule. No one mistook her silence for invisibility anymore. That change had not come because Adrian demanded respect on her behalf. It came because he had finally stopped standing between her and the right to define herself. He gestured toward the empty chair. It is there if you want it. Nia looked at him carefully. And if I do not? Then Marcus gets 2 desserts. From across the table, Marcus raised his hand. I support this outcome. Nia laughed before she could stop herself. It was small, but the sound softened something in Adrian's face. He did not reach for her. He did not repeat the command that had once turned an entire ballroom silent. He simply pulled his own chair back and waited. Nia looked at the seat beside him, then at the doorway behind her. 3 months earlier, every door in this house had represented a rule. Stay out. Stay quiet. Stay useful. Stay safe. Now the choice was hers. She walked around the table and took the empty chair. Adrian sat beside her without comment. For several minutes, dinner unfolded normally. Evelyn told a story. Marcus complained about the seating arrangement. Someone asked Nia about Caleb, and she smiled as she explained that he had started his final semester and was already applying for jobs. Only later, when conversation moved down the table, did Adrian speak quietly enough for only her to hear. Beside me. Nia turned her head. The question carried no command now. No expectation. Just hope restrained by respect. She let him wait 1 extra second. Do not push your luck. Adrian laughed, genuinely this time. Nia looked around the table, at people who once would have seen only the maid and the man who owned the house. Everything between them had begun inside a world obsessed with rank, control, and appearances. Yet the most important change had been painfully simple. Adrian had once believed power meant deciding where everyone belonged. Nia had taught him otherwise. Dignity began where choice did, and love, if it was ever going to mean anything, had to begin there too.